What's up, Pacer Nation? Before we get into today's episode, I want to just give you guys a little bit of a heads up. Look, Facci and I pre-recorded this podcast episode on Tuesday night before the Siakam news was made on Wednesday and before we saw the trade that happened Thursday night between the Chicago Bulls and the Oklahoma City Thunder, where Alex Caruso was traded to OKC for Josh Giddey. So, if there's any conversations about any trades involving Josh Giddey, Alex Caruso, please understand that we did not know that there was a trade that already happened. So that point will be mute. And instead of editing out of the podcast and kind of making an unnatural type of fit, we're just going to leave it in there. But I also want to say, me and Facci came up with these trade ideas because everybody was asking us on social media to come up with some trade idea stuff. So it's more so a conversation about what we think it would take for a deal to get done for said player, or a deal that could make sense for the Pacers if they want to do a certain thing in terms of like different scenarios. But I would say this in no way, shape, or form. We were saying, oh, I would absolutely 100% do this if I'm the Pacers. So I just want to make sure I preface that before you guys listen to today's show. So you're not thinking, man, Alex said he would trade this for this. No, I think this is just a great way to kind of have a conversation, see where the value is at for your players and what the value is assumed to be around the league for other players that the Pacers could have interest in, could not have interest in. I don't know. Obviously, we're just kind of guessing here, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to go through and look at potential trades that could happen. So I'm not trying to sit here and act like I know everything. Facci is not trying to do that either. We just want to make sure that everybody knows that we're just having fun, talking Pacers basketball, and we wanted to make sure that everybody knows going into this, like, these trade ideas are things that we looked at, things that we might consider, but more so things for us to have a discussion about to kind of understand the value. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and then Facci and I are going to dive right in to our trade ideas.
This is Tyrese Halliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. We've made it another week, and guess what? We are one day closer to NBA free agency, the NBA draft. It's all coming up quickly, but Facci, before we get into that, we got to tell everybody what we are doing on today's show. So let's talk about it. What are we doing?
All right. So if you listen to last episode, we talked about our top 10 names that, the Pacers should look to acquire via trade. Well, today we're going to take it one step further, and we're going to throw out some actual trades that Alex and I came up to acquire some of those players from last episode. So I hope you guys like this one. It's always fun breaking out the trade machine.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a challenge at this point of the season. There's a lot of things that go into factor here because you got free agents, you got a lot of people sitting on cap holds waiting for their deals to be done, and those guys can't be traded unless you do a sign and trade, and that gets kind of interesting. So we're gonna do our very best here, Facci. But let's start things off here and just go back and forth giving trade ideas. What do you got for your first trade?
All right. You know me, I'm always going to start out small. I'm going to work my way up. So in this deal, it is far from a blockbuster type of deal, but it's going to involve the Pacers and the Warriors. We're going after Kevon Looney.
Okay.
All right. In this situation, the Pacers are offering up, they got to convince him first, Jalen Smith to opt into the player option and the 50th overall pick in the 2024 draft for Kevon Looney. Look, we know 3 second-round picks is way too many for the Pacers, so maybe Golden State can take one off of our hands. In this scenario, it actually saves Golden State some money, so I think that's definitely an incentive for them. And Jalen Smith's actually a player that I think that can benefit in Golden State, so I don't see why they wouldn't want to do this, and I think Jalen Smith and the Pacers, their days together may be numbered.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that this is an interesting trade. I think that there's reason why both teams would like this deal.
Mhm.
I kind of wonder if Indiana would rather just bring Jalen back if he's going to opt in than have Kevon Looney, right? That's the only thing I'm wondering, just because, Looney's making more money, and I think Jalen kind of knows what to expect with this team and what, how he fits in with shooting and rebounding and things like that. So I'm intrigued a little bit, but there's a reason Kevon Looney was not on my top 10 trade list. I don't know how he fits, but would you be ready to accept this deal if it was brought to you if you're the Pacers GM?
I would, because I just think at this point, Jalen Smith, I think he's still going to be looking for that next contract. If he opts in and comes back to the Pacers, his value isn't going to go up. I think that there's enough other mouths to feed that his playing time could be a little bit inconsistent. I think for Kevon Looney, you don't have to play him 20 plus minutes a night, but I think whatever minutes you do play him, he's going to play really hard for you. And I think the Pacers right now, sometimes it's just shoring up some of those backup spots. And I would feel comfortable with Kevon Looney being the backup center at that point, or being interchangeable with Isaiah Jackson compared to Jalen Smith always having to look over his shoulder, being on a short leash.
I understand that. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's the worst trade at all. Don't get me wrong here. I think it's kind of intriguing, right? I think that there's a lot of people that like Kevon Looney. I think they saw what he did to Sabonis 2 years ago in the playoffs and really dominated the boards.
That was impressive.
And you know that he's done it. He's been in some big games, and I think he's younger than people realize. He's not as
I know.
old.
He feels like an old man. He really does.
He plays like one, and he walks like one. But he's not one. So he's a young OG. So yeah, I mean, if that trade were to happen, I wouldn't be upset about it. I just kind of wonder if the Pacers would rather just have someone cheaper that knows their system better. But why not? If you don't feel like Jalen's the right guy, you don't want to worry about Ajax having someone looking over his shoulder the whole time, then that could make some sense. But I'm gonna stay on the same topic here as going after another center. And I've got a big trade here for you, Facci, to start things off from my end. Jalen Smith opts into his contract. We're going to trade that plus Jarris Walker. And I think you're going to have to include this just to get this deal done. A 2028 top 8 protected first-round pick to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Naz Reid.
Wow. So Jarris Walker, Jalen Smith, and a top 8. Is that what you said?
Top 8 protected 2028 pick.
That to me feels like way too much. It scares me a bit. Naz Reid, I like him, but he doesn't have this proven track record of years and years. Jarris Walker, we still don't know what he is. So to me, it's like if he ends up being
take the pick out, what would you do?
If you take the pick out, I definitely feel better about it because you can.
That's what I originally had crafted.
Yeah.
And then after we had talked last episode about how much value he is to Minnesota, I thought, do I need to throw this pick in here? I kind of felt like I did just because they're trying to win now. But that does give them a lot of team control for Jarris if they want to do that.
I think if you're Minnesota, I think you have to do that move because I think now you're getting a young player in Jarris Walker that you can develop. And then that pick, that could be really good when you're looking at, the amount of picks that you gave up to get Rudy Gobert for future picks. So in my mind, that pick cannot be involved. You can make an argument to say, look, we get Naz Reid right now. We're already a significantly better team. And Jarris Walker, maybe he never does pan out, but there is still that question mark of what if he does?
Right.
So I think for me, if the pick's in there, I'm definitely out. I'm hanging up the phone. If the pick's not in there, I'm definitely rubbing my beard a little bit and kind of mulling it over and saying like, So
what if it's like top 14 protected, like lottery protected, and it's just 15 to whatever, that it's theirs? Make it feel better?
I would definitely feel better at that point because if a pick's ever lottery protected, I don't care that much about it because I don't think like giving up the 17th overall pick is ever like a make or break of like, oh man, this is brutal. But it's the like giving up a top 10 pick to me is just a little bit tough because that could be a rotational player on any given night.
Here's what I would say. Like, I think if the Pacers made this deal, I would be shocked by 2028 if they are in the lottery picking once again. The only problem is it kind of limits you on what deals you can make if you do trade that 2028 pick because let's say a star becomes available, but you can only offer, 30 and then pick swaps in 29 and 31 because you can't offer 27 because you traded 2026 and you already traded 2028 now. So you're kind of limited with what picks you can get off of. So that to me is another reason why I would be a little bit hesitant to add the pick. Not because I'm afraid that it could convey to Minnesota, but it's more so because that it could limit me from making a bigger trade elsewhere if I feel like there's a bigger trade out there besides Naz Reid, even though I do think Naz Reid is a very, very good player.
I do, and I agree with you there, though. It's already like, you couple in, you factor in, like you mentioned, giving up that 2026 pick that's already owed. And if you give up your 2028, Indiana's got nothing to be able to offer in terms of draft picks for quite some time. And I think that's always a risk as a smaller market team in the NBA. I think, there's no way the Pacers could have landed Siakam without having picks available. And I think that I'm just a little hesitant to give up that 2028 pick.
Yeah.
But
all right.
I definitely feel better if it's lottery protected compared to top 8, but I'd also feel a lot better if it just wasn't involved, period.
Right.
But
same. That's what my original trade was, just so everybody knows. I just threw in that pick because of our conversation last time, and like, man, am I undervaluing Naj Reid? I kind of feel like I am, and then I feels like, how much is too much for a backup center?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. It's a tough line to tiptoe. But the next trade on my list is going after Kelly Olynyk. All right. I'm not letting this dream die out. And here's the thing. Kelly Olynyk at $12.8 million, he can be perfectly absorbed into our mid-level exception. He's got 2 years on that deal. However, here's the thing. If you want to save that mid-level exception, maybe use it or most of it on Obi Toppin, here's what we can offer. What about an offer of sorry, but he's going to be involved in a few of them. You're getting Jalen Smith to opt in. All right. Jalen Smith's opting in the player option. And in this scenario, you're also including Isaiah Jackson. And I don't know if this is an overpay. If you have to, is the 36th overall pick the deal breaker for you?
I mean, not really. Not for me with this draft.
It's not for me. Here's the thing. Whoever the Pacers drafted at 36, if this guy can contribute this next year, that's a plus. But at 36, that's not a guarantee. So here's the trade that I had. It's Kelly Olynyk for Jalen Smith, Isaiah Jackson, and pick 36, which ironically belonged to Toronto in the first place.
Oh, interesting.
And in this scenario, look, I looked at it. Kelly Olynyk ranked 30th in the NBA last year in defensive plus minus. He's a proven veteran. People hate to play against him, and he could do a little bit of everything. He could rebound, score, hit the three, pass the rock, like just a little bit of everything as a backup. I think to me, he's bringing more to the table than Jalen Smith. And I think for Isaiah Jackson, who will already be heading into a contract year, be on the verge of restricted free agency after the season, I think at that point, you still don't 100% know what you got. You saw enough flashes, but Kelly Olynyk at this point, 2 years left on the deal. It's not like you're inheriting this big contract.
Yeah, no, honestly, like this is not a bad idea at all. I think Kelly Olynyk is better than both these players and can do a lot of different things. I think people would be a little upset that Indiana gave up so quickly on both young guys. And I think that's why you would get pushback from fans when listening to this. They're going to say, I hate Kelly Olynyk. That guy sucks. And they're also going to say, Isaiah Jackson's way too young to be given up on. Look how great he was in the playoffs. When he was fine in the playoffs, he wasn't great. He was fine. He was serviceable. But you're getting an upgrade here for sure on a much cheaper contract. And once again, it goes back to our conversation last episode. It's at center insurance, right? It's just a little bit of, okay, we've got him for a year under contract. I think he fits really nice. And I think there's honestly some times where he could play next to Miles Turner as a 4 and be a little bit bigger. Like I think that you could see that too. So yeah, I'd be really intrigued by this. And I actually had a similar trade, made up for Robert Williams. I didn't have the 36 pick involved, but I had Jackson Jalen for Robert Williams, the third. And I kind of wondered if that would be intriguing to Portland, if they would want to make that deal. Robert Williams is 26 compared to Olynyk, who's closer to 31. Coming off the injury does make me a little bit concerned if I'm Indiana doing this deal. Obviously, if I could find a way just to absorb him into that mid-level exception is what I would do, because it is a doable, thing. But I don't know what you would have to give up in return, whether it is a pick of the future, like whether it's a bunch of seconds you give up to Portland. I don't know exactly how you would be able to absorb that without really giving anything back. And I think that they would want to at least see what they can get out of him before just letting him walk for nothing or trade him for nothing, essentially. So I had the similar trade build up. I had Ijax plus Jalen Smith for Robert Williams III.
I would do that trade in a second. I don't think Portland would. Yeah. I think Portland didn't get to see anything out of Robert Williams last year to the point where they're saying, like, hey, look, he's young. We're a young team. We're in no rush, like that. But it doesn't make sense. We talked about this last year. Everybody talked about it. DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams, like, that's a lot. That's two young centers that are not going to be able to fully develop. So I think at some point they might move on from someone. I don't think anybody's taking Ayton right now. So I think if you're Portland, and you want to say, absorb him into the mid-level, I don't think they're in a rush to get rid of him like that. And then we don't have those picks. I don't think they're going to want a bunch of second-round picks, and we can't give up a first. So if a deal like, Jalen and Isaiah Jackson was to get it done, and you want to throw on pick 36, I would still do that. I would.
Yeah.
Would they? I don't really know.
Yeah, that's where I was like, man, this is just weird. Like, I don't know what to give up for him exactly. It's like
Yeah,
I'm not giving up a first round pick for him.
I'm not doing that. No way.
But if it was like 4 seconds,
Oh,
sure.
absolutely. Take five. You want five? Look, at this point, we don't need these second round picks anymore. It's too many, and I think that everybody thinks it's like the NFL draft where you're like, what if we take 36, 49, and 50, and we move up to 30? It's like nobody wants that.
No.
So
Who
that's
wants
not
to put 3 players on their roster and a 15-man roster? It's not like you're building a 53-man roster with a practice squad, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
oh man. All right, well, let's go on to your next trade since I just threw another trade out there. So you're
All
up.
right, my next trade. I mean, look, I feel like I'm kind of limping on this podcast, even presenting this after you already showed no interest in this player last time. But
Oh
it's
no.
DeAndre Hunter. It's
Ah,
DeAndre
I
Hunter.
gotta hear this one, man. Come
Yeah,
on.
you,
What is this
you got to
trade?
hear it. And at this point, I almost don't even want to share it. I don't even feel confident anymore. But here's the thing: it was DeAndre Hunter for Aaron Nesmith, Jalen Smith, and a second round pick. Now, I know you said last episode, look, you already prefer Aaron Nesmith at half the cost, and I definitely get that. I definitely do. For Hunter, you have him under contract for the next few years. Jalen Smith, I don't think that you're taking much of a loss there, and it's a second round pick. I had it at pick 36, which not a bad pick, not a great pick, but at this point, you could definitely make the argument to just say, hey, you know what? We got Aaron Nesmith at half the cost. I'm fine sticking with it. If the Pacers want to potentially dream a little bit bigger, then I do think that Hunter could be that player.
Like I said, I understand the reason and the intrigue for DeAndre Hunter. I don't like him better than Aaron Nesmith in the way that he
Fine.
plays. I will say this: maybe there are teams around the league that view DeAndre Hunter as a higher prospect still, and they view him as a higher ceiling type of player. And that would be the only reason I would consider this deal is if this is all it took to get him. Now you have someone making around $20 million that you can combine in a salary in the future, maybe at the trade deadline to go out there and get somebody that you actually feel is the missing piece. But yeah, that's the only intrigue behind it for me with DeAndre Hunter. Like I know there's people that probably do really like him besides just you. So
We're out there.
yeah, the size, the ability that he shot better last year, I think, than previous years, right? Or did he shoot worse?
No, he did. It was a career high from three. Shot about just over 38%.
Okay.
Overall from the field, he shot 46%.
Yeah.
You live
So I
with that.
mean, you want that to be a little higher, but still,
Yep.
like not bad numbers. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't. He doesn't pass the eye test for me. It's kind of one of
That's
those
fine.
things where I was intrigued early on, and now the more and more I watch him play and hear about him linked to Indiana, the less I like him.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, not everybody's a Hunter guy, and look, if you're Indiana, you could make an argument to say every dollar definitely counts, especially what they're doing now if they are to re-sign, Siakam and Obi Toppin. I mean, having an extra $10 million to go around, I think is something that could very well go a long way.
For sure. I'm gonna go on my next trade here, Facci, and this is the one that I think is really interesting to have a conversation about. And once again, I don't know if a pick is actually needed in this in this trade, but I'm gonna throw it in here just because it's a second round pick. I'm trading Ben Shepherd and pick 36 to Minnesota for Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
All right, so repeat it to me again. If Nickeil Alexander Walker's in the deal, and then
Yeah,
on the
it's
Pacers
just
side,
Nickeil Alexander. He's got an expiring contract for about $4.5 million, and you're trading Ben Shepherd and pick 36. I don't even know if pick 36 is necessarily needed in this trade, but I feel like Minnesota is going to say, Nickeil Alexander-Walker was our best bench player last year. I know that Ben Shepherd had a good rookie season for you guys, but we're going to need more than that. The thing here is you got Ben Shepherd under contract for potentially the next 5 to 6 years, being the 26th overall pick, where Alexander Walker could hit free agency in the summer.
this is really tough. I think this is probably going to be the trade of the podcast that everybody's the most torn on because
Except
you.
for Rooster, he's going to be so mad at this trade.
Oh yes, he's going to be hurt.
He
Definitely
sees
going to be hurt.
Ben Clay Thompson, Shepherd, and he's been predicting it for months now. So I'm sure he's going to be upset. But
Been holding on to his
regardless,
tweet and his
talk about
drafts for quite some time. Now, here's the thing: it's like I almost feel that if the Pacers were to make this trade for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I feel like they wouldn't end up re-signing him because I think that then all of a sudden it could be little bit too costly as you're looking to re-sign guys like potentially a Benedict Mathurin or an Andrew Nemhard or anything of that sort. So that's where it might actually be helpful to have a Ben Shepherd on the books,
Yeah.
being able to develop. So I'm torn because, right now, who's the better player? It's definitely Nickeil Alexander-Walker. No doubt about it. But I do feel that you are trading multiple years just for one. And at pick 36, I don't know, maybe it's someone
Yeah.
that doesn't contribute that much this year, but ends up contributing for a couple of years. So I think you're probably trading too many years for a player that you're only going to have for 1 year that isn't probably going to shake up the team too much and make them that much better. So I do like me some Alexander Walker, but I think that the tipping scale is having potentially two players under contract for the next, handful of years each.
Yeah, that team control is really nice for Ben Shepherd, and what we saw in his rookie season was really intriguing. We saw the same thing with Chris Duarte, though, too, right? Chris Duarte, an older guy that got drafted, looked really good in his first year, then all of a sudden kind of fell off. So I don't think Ben Shepherd's going to be that guy. I really
I
don't.
hope not. I don't think so either.
Yeah, I will say this: you don't trade for Nickeil Alexander-Walker expecting it only to be 1 year. I think you do trade for him expecting to re-sign him in free agency the next year. And once again, he could end up being more impactful if he does resign than Ben Shepherd could be, right? So it's just
Yes.
I think Indiana's books will be a little bit cleaner at that moment, knowing that they
Maybe.
won't have to extend Mathurin yet, like his extension won't kick in yet. Neither will Nimhard's, maybe until the offseason. So I don't know exactly, but I think it's interesting. I don't love it. I don't hate it though. I think I'm like you said, I'm torn on it. I can make the
Yeah.
case for both sides.
I can definitely make the case for both sides. I think it's you're not giving up too much if you're the Pacers. You're definitely not. Like the Pacers will still be able to function without Ben Shepherd and pick 36, but it's just okay, what if Alexander Walker did walk? And it's weird saying that, but at the same point, it's a lot of years. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna mull that one over. I guess I'd probably lean maybe to not do it, but if they did it, I'd still be very excited.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
next trade on my list, it's a name that last episode we spoke about, and you challenged me. You said, would it cost this player? And I unfortunately had to say yes. And I'd be curious to hear other people's thoughts. It's the trade involving the Pacers and the Cavs. It involves Jarrett Allen being traded to Indiana for Miles Turner. And at this point, I was kind of torn to say, I think the Pacers probably have to include pick 36. I don't know if Jarrett Allen is weighed a little bit higher around the league or not, but from a defensive standpoint, like I mentioned last episode, Jarrett Allen ranked 12th in defensive win shares last year. He is a better defender. Turner might be a better shot blocker at times, but Jarrett Allen's also going to be a much better rebounder and has been for his career. It's not that much of a difference. Jarrett Allen is 2 years younger. He's only 26 years old. So it's not like it's, there's a 4 or 5 year difference, but he is a little bit younger. And the big thing is he's under contract for 1 more year than Turner is. He's got 2 years on the deal at $20 million. Turner's at 19.9. So it is pretty much as identical of a swap as could be.
Yeah, I would say that the league perception is that Jarrett Allen is higher because he does have an all-star on his resume. And I want to say there's people that were even talking about this year, like how he should be in the conversation for a fringe all-star for the Eastern Conference, especially for a replacement type of guy. So he's had his moments, and I think that he could be a nice pick and roll partner with Tyrese as well. I don't want to dismiss Jarrett Allen as a player that I don't like, as a player that doesn't make sense, because I do think that Jarrett Allen is a good player, good center in this league, would be a starter on pretty much any team that he's traded to or suited up for. But I just kind of wonder if the fact that Halliburton and Turner were so good in the pick and pop last year, like they were the number one, duo in that game, if it makes sense to completely abandon what you did there with that to go for more of a rim running type of big. So I think Jarrett Allen's definitely a better rebounder, better screen setter, probably a better passer. He does a lot of things in a better way than Turner, but he doesn't shoot the ball as well.
Never will.
And I think that Turner's soft touch really is a special weapon that can't be, replaced easily. So that is the only cause for concern I have. But you bringing up the contract is a great point.
Yeah, and that's the thing is who knows what Miles Turner's going to do. I mean, the Pacers are not able to early extend him. He's going to be able to test the market at the end of next season, and you never know. You never know what could happen. So having one extra year guaranteed under contract for Jared Allen could be something that is very appealing. And I think that where the Pacers were defensively, it's definitely something to think about. But Turner also did put together, his best playoff run. There was a lot of really good moments to be happy about. But I also do sadly kind of think that we've seen maybe the best of Miles Turner. I think the last 2 seasons probably is who Miles Turner is. And it's nothing to be mad about. Those were good seasons. But I don't think there's that next, okay, he's going to average 20 and 9 or anything like that. I think you're probably looking at about, 17 and 7, moving forward. And if he can be consistent with that, I think there's a lot to be happy about. And I don't think Jared Allen's ever going to really be a 20-point per game scorer in this league, but I think he's probably just going to be a little bit more consistently night in, night out defensively.
Yeah, I would be really interested. Maybe we can do it later in the offseason to kind of see how impactful centers are on teams in terms of what you want to do. Because I think you can make the case the Celtics were able to win a lot of games without their starting center in Porzingis because they had so many good wing players around him. I'm looking kind of at Dallas, who made the championship as well. Derek Lively, a rookie. Daniel Gafford, someone they traded for in the middle of the season. Two centers that they're good, but they're limited in what they can do, right? And they were able to, still make it that far thanks to the play of their wing players, guard play. So I kind of just wonder, unless you're an Embiid or a Jokic type of player, how impactful are you as a center in terms of what your team is going to be doing overall? And should it be the straw that what am I trying to say here? That breaks the camel's back, right? Yeah. I was making sure I had the right analogy there. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is it that the right type of person to really invest in? Because coming the offseason next year, what if Turner's I want $30 million? Give me 30.
That's where I'm at. That at some point you have to draw the line in the sand and say I just don't see you being a 20 and 10 guy or being able to take those next steps. I think that this is who Miles Turner is, and the way that the contracts are going, everybody just gets more and more and more money, and the Pacers are going to run into a spot where they should have Jared Allen under contract for that one extra year at $20 million. Yeah. And I know it's just one, it's not 3 extra years or anything of the sort, but next year is a very pivotal year for Miles, that if he can take that next step, then maybe you can say, okay, we could pay him closer to $30 million, but it's going to be hard for me to see a $10 million jump in his play.
I agree. I think he is kind of who he is, and there's not going to be much growth from him. I don't think there'll be any regression anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Maybe a little bit of growth, but not much to make a drastic impact that you might expect. Now, Facci, you said the last trade I gave you, the Ben Shepherd for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, might be the most controversial trade that I have, or one of the ones that sparks the most debate. I think this one's going to top it, and I'm really interested to see your response to this trade idea that I came up with. So we're going to Chicago. We're asking for Alex Caruso. Now, hear me out.
I'm scared.
We're also asking for the 2026 first-round pick from the Chicago Bulls. And we're giving them Benedict Mathurin.
Straight up?
Straight up.
Now, here's the thing. Do you think they do it?
I mean, I think they'd be pretty dumb not to do it.
I think if you're gonna make that trade, now's the time to do it, because there's a scenario where what if Mathurin either plays better and then all of a sudden it's we can't do that deal, or there's the what if Mathurin kind of is coming off the bench and his stock's not that high and we've missed that boat. I think you can make an argument to say this: which player fits the Pacers moving forward? You could probably make a strong argument to say that's Alex Caruso, because right now the Pacers kind of have. It sounds rough to say, but is Mathurin a luxury for the Pacers? They managed to win without him being able to contribute, and now you kind of wonder how does he fit in perfectly? To be able to, if it was Mathurin for Caruso straight up, I don't think I'd do it. 2026 first-round pick in there? Pacers don't have a 2026 first-round pick.
Exactly.
Chicago, you have no idea where they could be. They have not been the team kind of pushing that upper echelon for a bit. I think they're kind of closer to entering a rebuild. So that is really intriguing.
Okay, so here's some of the things to just lay out here. Caruso just turned 31 in February, so he'll be 32 at the end of his contract. Matherin will be 22 in just a couple of days. I think his birthday's even this month. June 19th. So his birthday is actually
Oh,
just passed as we're recording this on a Tuesday.
missed
So
it.
Juneteenth is his birthday. So happy birthday, Benedict Matherin. We're recording this on Tuesday the 18th, and we're releasing this on Friday the 21st. So anyway, just give you guys a little bit of a timeline here. So the reason why I'm considering this only because Chad Buchanan brought up some really interesting points. He talked
He did.
about what Matherin has to improve upon and what maybe he saw in the playoff run that Indiana had that could help him kind of like grow his game. Now, I will say this too. You could say that Indiana didn't really need Benedict Matherin to get to where they got to in the Eastern Conference Finals. And they did play some teams that were a bit hobble, right? But they still had to win those games. And I think you're going to see development from the young players on this roster already. You basically throw a healthy Alex Caruso in there for Benedict Matherin, who didn't play at all. And I think you feel like, wow, this team just got significantly better defensively. Like that's where I'm looking at this. This is a win now move. This is a move that basically says, you know what? We've already got so many young guys, and basically by trading Matherin, we're saying that we're picking Andrew Nembhard to be our starting long-term player down the road. Now, Caruso could start; he could come off the bench, he could close games. I'm not really sure exactly what you envision for him, but I do think that he could make a lot of sense on this team with what he brings, and that's why I'm saying if I'm Chicago, there's talks about trading DeRozan's a free agent. There's talks about trading Vooch. There's talks about trading Levine. If they want to go into a rebuild, a 21-year-old, 22-year-old guard that was a 6 overall pick just 2 years ago makes a lot of sense, especially if you compare him with a guy like Kobe White, Patrick Williams. You kind of start this rebuild a little bit. It could be, an interesting way to kind of go about rebuilding your team. So that to me is why I threw this out there. I feel like Indiana is going to be too afraid to make this kind of move.
I think they would be.
But I definitely think that it's an interesting discussion because I think you could convince yourself that in the next 3 to 4 years with this Siakam window that they have, this helps him have a better chance of winning now than Matherin's development and his inability to prove that he can be a consistent defender.
I'm kind of shook right now because I'm trying to look into the future to be like, what if Matherin does flourish and Caruso walks after 1 year? Like we just shot ourselves in the foot.
Well, yeah.
So it's never a guarantee that you re-sign that player. Obviously, are you putting that same stock in Caruso that you did Siakam, where when you made that trade for Siakam, it was like, we will cut a blank check and get this done. Like for Caruso, at some point, you got to say, okay, what is his value amongst the league? Right now, he's underpaid. There could be a scenario where Alex Caruso becomes a $20 million guy in this league if he keeps it up defensively. He really could be. I think you look at what Bruce Brown got. Obviously, it was just a 2-year deal, but Alex Caruso is a better defender than Bruce Brown in this league, and I think that he'll command more money. So if the Pacers were able to somehow get a deal done, for a couple of years, I feel good with that because I can definitely say if Alex Caruso is coming off the bench, and you have Nembhard starting, he signed. You're going to save money. Like Matherin could very well sign a deal that could pay him. I don't know if he works out, he could be a $20 million guy in this league. So I'm torn on it. It would be if you definitely feel that you're going to re-sign Alex Caruso, I'm on board. Like for instance, if there was 3 years on that Caruso deal, I'm doing that. I'm doing that deal right now.
Yeah, I think what makes it really hard is just because we talked about it last episode, like the rumored value out there for a guy like Alex Caruso. Like, what is his actual value? And so if it's what it's been rumored out there to be, then this is the kind of trade you would have to make. Now, looking at the Pacers roster, I'm sure people would say, well, I'd rather trade Jarris Walker probably than Benedict Matherin because at least you've seen Benedict Matherin display great games. Now, some might push back and say, well, we need the size, so let's keep Jarris Walker. Let's try to do a trade of, oh, maybe we could trade T.J. McConnell and Ben Shepherd for him or something like that. I just feel like the Pacers wouldn't do that deal either because of how much they value T.J. McConnell. And then if you even try to throw in like a Jalen Smith plus this plus Shepherd, like the Bulls aren't going to say yes to that. They're not doing that deal. So that's why I was like, this is what it has to be to make it at least somewhat interesting, semi-intriguing to talk about. I think Indiana would be too afraid to make this deal just because I think they want to at least give Benedict Mathurin the length of his rookie deal to see what he can become, and maybe by the time he's into that extension and it's not working out, that's when they kick the can down the road and trade him. But I don't think they would be willing to trade him in year 3 after everything that they've gone through and how fast they've developed. I don't think they want to rush the development and the growth of this team for, a flash in the pan run to the Eastern Conference Finals. So that to me is why I would be hesitant to do it if I'm Indiana, but I thought for conversation purposes, this would be interesting.
Yeah, I think if you're Chicago, you have to take that deal. I really do think. I strongly believe that DeMar DeRozan, why would he want to re-sign Chicago? If he re-signs in Chicago, it's not about winning. At that point, it's strictly about just the money, and I think that he can get paid in plenty of other locations. So if DeRozan walks, you're looking at a team that's just there's not that much left there. You might as well trade Caruso at that point. Benedict Mathurin feels like a perfect rebuild player for the Chicago Bulls. So I think Chicago definitely wants to do that deal. I think if you're Indiana, you are just a little too scared to make that deal because I understand why. You could be giving up on a really good player that could potentially be that missing piece on a team that just went to the conference finals.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm torn. I think everybody has the right to be shook on that deal just a little bit, and that's what I would say that I am. But
yeah, I'm sure that I'll be getting some comments back on this.
Absolutely, because that is the type of trade that sparks conversation. Like, I would really love to know, what does everybody value? Being one piece away right now, or potentially the sustainability down the line to have a player under contract for what could be, however many, could be talking about 7 seasons, anything of the sort, from now. So that's a lot. But my last trade, I only got one more.
Okay.
My biggest deal. It's a blockbuster deal. All right.
Okay.
This is the home run deal. I don't know if it gets it done, but here's the deal. It involves the Brooklyn Nets and the Indiana Pacers. It's Mikal Bridges. Here's what we got over here. It's a name that we just discussed. It's Benedict Mathurin.
Okay.
It's Jarris Walker. It's Isaiah Jackson. And it's a 2028 top 3 protected first-round pick for Mikal Bridges. There are no other additional firsts. Is that enough to get the deal done for Brooklyn?
Yeah, if I'm Brooklyn, I'm slam dunking this deal, Foch. I mean, I would be dumb not to.
I think they would too. Better than draft picks. You're getting a pick that could be really good. That could be, I don't know, if who knows, top 5, top 10 pick. Anything could happen 4 years from now. You hope not. But Mathurin and Jarris Walker, in my opinion, are better than the mystery box of first-round picks that could end up being 15th overall or 18th overall or anything of that sort.
Yeah, see, this is where I'm so torn. Like, so it was Mathurin, Jarris, Ijax, and a 2028.
Top
3. 28.
protected.
How much protected?
Top 3.
Top 3. Okay, I'm just writing this down so I can see it on paper. I don't think I would do this deal. Here's why. I like Mikal Bridges. Like I said, I really do. I don't know if I can give up both lottery picks for him, though. I don't think he's worth that much. I think you don't give up back-to-back lottery picks for a guy that's not a number 1 option on a championship level team, or even a number 2 option. I think he's number 3 or 4 at the best. I honestly think
he's
that's
an
the ceiling.
Elite number 3 in this league, like elite number 3.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Like, okay, let's just think about it this way. If you look at the Celtics, who just won the championship, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum are your 1-2.
Definitely.
Your number 3 that entire series was Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
Is he better than Drew Holiday in a playoff series?
Probably not, but I think Drew Holiday is much more experienced in this league and everything. And Mikal Bridges at that point could be better. I think there's a solid age difference between them, but Bridges definitely still younger, growing as a player, and definitely has a long career ahead of him.
How old is Bridges right now? Is he 20?
I got it pulled up right now. He is 27 years old. He'll actually be 28 in August.
Okay, so he's really entering the prime of his career. So, yeah, I mean, it does make sense for both sides to make that type of deal. I would probably try to get at least I try to keep one of my young guys at least if I'm going to make this deal. I'd rather trade Neesmith if I can in this scenario, and see if I can keep probably Jarris. in this deal. I would much rather give up Matherin in this scenario, Facci, that we're talking about, because for my Mikal Bridges trade, I had Jalen opting in, but I could even throw Ijax, and I'm not worried about that. I think that those are pretty close players. Matherin and Neesmith, as well as a 2028 first round pick for Mikal Bridges. That was my thought process.
So it's unprotected first?
Unprotected first.
Well, I mean, I was hoping, hey, if you have Neesmith now playing probably more where he should be, like coming off the bench, it's like you have Neesmith and Bridges, as good defenders and everything like that. But I definitely get it. I mean, look, if Jarris Walker is who everybody hoped he'd be, then yeah, it's definitely an overpay. But at this point, we just don't know. So I looked at this like, for my team, for my trade, it was like Matherin, Walker, and Isaiah Jackson, 3 players that didn't contribute much during this playoff run, and you still keep the whole core of the team in place. But I think that it's like Matherin and Walker, maybe they reach their full potential, maybe they do, but if they don't, this is probably the type of trade that you include those guys in. But it could, if they reach their full potential, then we messed up. We definitely did, because they could be very good players for a long time. It's kind of the, we're taking a shot while they're young and unproven for a far more proven guy. But that's what you have to do when you don't have the picks to offer, because we've heard that they've turned down 3 or 4 first-round picks for Bridges.
Yeah. No, I definitely think it's interesting. I mean, I would think about it. Because if I feel like I would ask Tyrese, you think we can win with this if we make this trade? If he says yes, then you probably do make that deal. I don't like the fact that Mikal Bridges has been side-eyeing the New York Knicks.
He definitely has.
I don't want him having wondering eyes when we're playing New York as a rival.
Yeah.
Is that a fair point?
I mean, it's definitely fair. I think that he's also probably, yes, that's where his friends are, and they're in the same city. But I also think that winning cures a lot. And if you could be on a winning team, I think you're going to be a little bit happier. I mean, the trade that you mentioned for Neesmith, Walker, Isaiah Jackson, like salary-wise, it works out. It definitely does. But I also just was like I said, it goes back to my point of like trying to keep this core in place. But if you can keep Matherin there, then yeah, obviously that's something that's really exciting. So you could go either way on it. I just felt like if you were trying to do like a win now type of move, I think the one that I said probably makes a little bit more sense. If you're trying to balance it out a little bit long term, I think your trade probably makes more sense.
Yeah, I mean, you're pushing all the chips in pretty much on your deal.
Pretty much.
And that's
Top
where it
3
gets really interesting.
But
What?
I don't think we're gonna fall in the top 3 as it relates to 28. So I know yours was unprotected, but
It's
I
the
think
same
either
thing,
way,
pretty much.
people could lean either way depending on if they're believers in Matherin or not.
For sure. I've got a handful of trades left. I'll just kind of go through them quickly. You can tell me if you like them or not. We're going to go with a very boring one here because I just did one for every player that I put on my list. I got Dorian Finney-Smith and Day'Ron Sharpe for Jalen Smith, and then Obi Toppin, a sign and trade, 3 years, $45 million. So basically, you're swapping Obi Toppin and a sign and trade for Dorian Finney-Smith, and then swapping Jalen Smith for Day'Ron Sharpe.
What's your thoughts on Day'Ron Sharpe? Is he just kind of salary filler for you there, or is there something really like?
It's a little bit of like, okay, I need a third string center. I need a little bit of extra money from Jalen to make this work. So Day'Ron Sharpe to me, like he's a tank, dude. I could not believe how big he was when I watched him play against the Pacers previously this year or earlier this year. So I like him. I think that he's just a beast on the boards, but third string centers really don't move the needle for me one way or the other.
Because here's where we're at. Finney-Smith, you're getting an upgrade defensively. You definitely are. Obi Toppin, you could make an argument that he's in the perfect situation that he can thrive and get better as time goes on. Do you see Finney-Smith getting better moving forward? 31 years old.
He is who he is. I don't think Obi's getting much better either, to be honest with you. I think Obi's kind of what he is at this point, like maybe a little bit better version of this, but like not much. He's going to be limited off the bench and what he can do, right? So I think that defensively you're getting better. Offensively, you're probably taking a step back because of how well Obi shot the ball this year. It's just one of those things where maybe $15 million a year is too much for Indiana for Obi.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why the sign and trade makes sense. If there's a team like Brooklyn that wants to offer him that, they're kind of looking to change things up a little bit. Not really sure exactly what they want, but it just made some sense to me.
Yep. I hear you on that. I'm a little bit torn on there. I'm torn because I do think that Obi can get a little bit better. I do think so. But I think for what's best for the team, I think Obi could be replaceable. I think defensively, you definitely need a little bit more help on that. It's obviously what Finney Smith's going to bring to the table.
Gotcha. Okay, well, let's keep it moving here. I've got a couple more trades up my sleeve. We're going to go to Brandon Ingram here, Facci. The Pacers trade Miles Turner, Aaron Nesmith, and TJ McConnell for Jose Alvarado, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, and Brandon Ingram.
I'm out.
You're
Can't do it.
out.
I'm out. I think you trade Turner, Nesmith, and who is the third? TJ McConnell. You're like, man, I mean, those are some core pieces right there. Then you got to pay Ingram. So I think at this point, what are we doing at center? I mean, are we just Isaiah Jackson?
You figure that out later. You know what I mean? Like
I
you could still make a trade for another center.
You would have to. I don't know what you're able to give up after that. That could get you a good center, but at that point, I'm passing.
Okay, yeah, I didn't love that one. It was one of those things where I had to make a trade for him because I was making a trade for every player. Like, man, that's tough. And I was trying to I was like, Alvarado is a decent backup. I think he could be similar to McConnell in terms of
Poor man's McConnell,
Yeah, poor man's McConnell, younger. JR or JRE, excuse me, Jeremiah Robinson Earl was just kind of a throw in there salary wise to get you another player back. Okay, now this one's a little interesting. Pacers trade Miles Turner, Ben Shepherd, and a top 5 protected 2028 first round pick for Larry Nance Jr. and Herb Jones.
Turner, Shepherd, and a 2028 top 5. I think I would do it. I honestly think I would do it. I'm fine moving on from Ben Shepherd and the top 28 pick. Look, you have to have some pick involved in there. Herb Jones immediately gives the Pacers a boost defensively, and then you look at Larry Nance. He's a solid backup. He's not going to be a Miles Turner caliber center, but I think that he's always been a good shot blocker in this league, and I think that you avoid long term, you probably saved a lot of money in terms of what you would have paid Turner, while Herb Jones is under contract for, I believe, the next 3 years.
Yeah.
So that to me is what's really appealing.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, I got to find the right value. I think Turner could be very intriguing for New Orleans because they need a shooting center that can make a lot of sense next to Zion. You have Brandon Ingram, you have CJ McCollum, you have Trey Murphy III. Like, you still have a lot of key pieces to keep intact there. You're just giving up. You're moving on from Herb Jones. I think that's a really interesting player. Larry Nance Jr. could be a nice backup 5 for Indiana as well. Yeah. You would still probably need to address your starting center position later in a trade, but I think you can figure that out. And like I mentioned, how important is the center position? Who really knows?
Jalen Smith probably opts in.
Well, I'm sure he would. That's a big win right there. I roll. Anyway, all right. I got 2 left, Foch. I have 2 left. I'll move on quickly. These are my big trades, though. Paul George opts into his $48.7 million contract the last year. I just felt like doing it that way instead of doing a sign and trade because I have no idea what exactly the money would be. But this one, I know exactly what it would be. So he opts into that final year. Indiana trades Miles Turner, Aaron Nesmith, and TJ McConnell to the Clippers. They also trade Jalen Smith to the Miami Heat for Thomas Bryant. That's about a $3 million differential there in contract. So the Pacers would get back Paul George and Thomas Bryant, and they would trade out 4 players. I thought that if Paul George says, I want to go to Indiana kind of has leverage there to not have to give up their young assets to make that deal happen.
So the 4 players, you said Turner,
Nesmith, McConnell, and Jalen Smith.
In that scenario, I think I would do that because I do think that outside of Turner, the other ones you could live with, and I think when you only have 1 year left on the deal for Turner, that to me is like, okay, if you're getting a commitment from Paul George at that point, that sort of feels different than trading a bunch of young players in there. So I think if that's the scenario, but if you're the Clippers, I mean, really, things clearly went down south, and you just had a failed relationship with Paul George at that point. So I'd be shocked if that's the case. To not hear any draft picks in there, it definitely surprises. But wouldn't expect that one to be likely, but I would do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to throw draft picks in there, I would consider it. But Paul George is also 35 years old. Like, how much do you really want to give up for him, right? That's an interesting one. Now,
trade this time won't be
what?
like from last time.
What'd
Paul
you
George
say?
getting traded this time around is not going to be like when he got traded, from OKC where there was like, all those draft picks, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, all that stuff. His values definitely changed this time around.
Okay, so here's the OG trade that I was talking about earlier, where I said if OG opts into that final deal on his contract, that to me was the way I went about doing these instead of doing sign and trades. I just wanted to keep it simple. OG opts in. There's about 20 million left on that deal. Requests a trade to Indy. Says I want to go to the Pacers. Indiana would then trade Aaron Nesmith, 2 first-round picks, 2028 and 2030, unprotected, plus one of Jarris Walker or Benedict Mathurin to the New York Knicks.
Oof, man, this deal got scarier as time went on. Look, I think okay, so you're talking about 2028, 2030. These are unprotected picks.
Unprotected first-round picks.
Okay. The players in there, it was Aaron Nesmith and who's it?
Aaron Nesmith, and then they can pick from Jarris Walker or Ben Mathurin, whichever one they want.
It's really scary because this is really tough.
I think I do it. I don't think I even hesitate.
It's
Think about the starting lineup. Just listen to the starting lineup.
Yeah.
Tyrese Halliburton, Andrew Nembhard, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner.
I mean, you could make an argument it could be the best starting 5 the Pacers maybe have ever had. I don't know. I mean, or moving forward or anything of the sort. I mean, it's a very well-balanced starting 5, outside of Halliburton, defensively, but it's just like still an all-NBA type player. So, yeah, I mean, I guess at that point, if you realize the Pacers were this close to potentially winning it all, OG definitely feels like the missing piece. So I think if you're ever going to take a swing, that's probably the time to take a swing and just say, hey, you know what? Go for it. But who's the player? Who's the young player that you would include between Mathurin or Jarris Walker?
I originally put Mathurin because I feel like that's who they would want. But I could see them wanting Jarris if they do give up OG because of the wing position that they're going to be missing out on.
I think they would want Jarris. I think Tibbs is going to want hey, defense wings. You got a young player over there. But I also think that if you traded Mathurin instead, it probably fits a little bit more seamlessly for the team to just be like, okay, his contract time, his contract renewal, extension would be coming up sooner. He would need more minutes right now. You could still bring, Walker along slowly compared to Mathurin, where it's like it would be a problem if he was only playing 20 minutes a night.
Mm-hmm. For sure. All right, now I've got a blockbuster deal for you that I came up with.
Oh man, you just pulling these out of thin air.
It's my super trade, Foch. I put it at the end. I just thought I'd throw it out there. It's a 3-teamer. I couldn't go without doing a 3-team deal for you. A real 3-teamer, not my other one that I did earlier. But this is a super trade between the Indiana Pacers, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Indiana Pacers are going to trade Miles Turner, Aaron Nesmith, Benedict Mathurin, and Kendall Brown to the Los Angeles Clippers.
What? No, I'm good. Go on.
That's a big move right there. To the Clippers. They're also going to trade Jarris Walker and Jalen Smith to Minnesota. In return, Indiana gets Paul George and Naz Reid. Here's your Pacers' new starting 5. Tyrese Halliburton, Andrew Nembhard, Paul George, Pascal Siakam, Naz Reid. Your bench, TJ McConnell, Ben Shepherd, Obi Toppin resigns, and Isaiah Jackson.
So I saw half the roster go out. So it was Turner, Nesmith, Kendall Brown,
and Ben Mathurin.
To
the Clips. That's 4.
Yes.
And then you trade Jarris and Jalen to Minnesota. So that's 6 guys going out. You get 2 back.
And then I guess you just have a bunch of minimum style guys, I guess, at that point that you bring in.
Yeah, I mean, you still got pick 36.
Still got pick 36. All right, we managed to keep that one. I mean, look, short term, no doubt about it. I think the Pacers are definitely better. You get Paul George and Naz Reid. You definitely worry a little bit moving forward is, you've given up a lot of the youth, so man, it's definitely a super trade right there.
Told you.
No doubt, it's
2K
definitely a super
style.
trade. I feel like the Pacers have a very select window to win it all, though. At that point, you have like a 2-year window before I feel like it's like, hey, you know what? Paul George is now approaching 37, 38 years old. Naz Reid's now probably coming up for his contract's up. Do you do it?
Yeah, I would do it.
All right. No draft picks are being offered.
No.
That's interesting. But so just to confirm, Turner, Neesmith, Mathurin, Walker, Jalen Smith, and Kendall Brown, right?
Yes. It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, you're definitely you're pulling almost kind of like a Phoenix Suns and saying like the future's now. Like it doesn't matter about the future.
Yeah, but
like,
I'm not giving up every single pick either.
no, you're not. You're just giving up all of our like young type players and stuff like that. So, I'm really really torn on this. Really torn.
I think that's the name of this episode. I'm really torn on this trade.
Yeah,
I've done
because
about 7 trades I've thrown out there.
if the Pacers don't win the NBA Finals the next year, I feel the window is now like it's taken there's just like a little draft coming through that window at that point. Like,
You don't think Paul
your
George has
time
3 years left in him?
I think he's got 2 really good all NBA type years, and then there's kind of that like 20-point per game guy that's good,
Yeah.
but no,
Honestly, this is a video game trade.
it's a video game trade. It's too much.
It's not a realistic trade. The
It's
Pacers
not.
aren't trading at these.
Half the roster is where it's like now you're trying to like glue some pieces together, find some minimum guys. It's just too much change when we're trying to kind of round off this roster, make like one addition. So to me, it just sounds like such a crazy trade. It's hard for me to grasp my mind around it. But
Yeah.
short term, next season, the Pacers would definitely be a better team.
Yeah, I think you do this trade. You go out and get you Gordon Hayward on the minimum deal, right?
Good.
You go out and get you another guy on the minimum deal that can make some sense. And hey, you might have yourself a team here that could compete and legitimately compete, because I think that's a really good 5. I mean, that might be the
Really
best
good
5 you could
find.
assemble.
The bench isn't bad. I mean, the bench
It's
is
not
like
much different than last season.
You're bringing back
The same
essentially,
bench.
yeah, exactly. So
And
I think
upgrading.
it's safe because obviously Walker wasn't doing much. Jalen Smith, whatever. Mathurin missed a large chunk of the season.
He missed all the playoffs.
Obviously the loss of Turner, but I think Naz Reid could bring a lot that the Pacers would like.
I hate to say it like this because I've liked how Miles has developed, but I think you get an upgrade at the center and the small forward position with what you had last year.
Yeah, definitely. I think Neesmith, it was kind of a little bit inconsistent. I think with Paul George, you know what you're getting night in, night out. And I think that he, at this point, doesn't even need to be. I mean, you could definitely say a number 2, but I feel like you could say him and Siakam are probably on a somewhat similar playing ground moving forward, given that Paul George will be a little bit older. So I think that's a really good big 3 right there of Halliburton, Paul George, Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, and then Naz Reid and Nembhard rounding out your 4 and your 5 is pretty good. McConnell as your 6th man.
Yeah.
Ben Shepherd, Obi Toppin, 7. It's a pretty good 8-man rotation, Foch. I mean, I'm not trying to sit here and act stupid about it, and I'm not thinking it's going to happen, but I'm just saying if that did play out, it seems like a lot in the moment, but that's a pretty good 8-man core for your rotation for a playoff rotation.
No, it really is. I mean, only the Pacers were going really deeper than 8, on any given night. But I think that for most teams, if that was their 8 guys that you're rolling out there, you feel good about it.
For sure. So that's the trade podcast, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any trades, please let us know on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube comments. What trades you would come up with. If you don't like any of these trades, let us know as well what you don't like and what you do like with our trades and our trade value for this Pacers team. But Facci, any final words before we sign off?
I would just want to say I would love to hear from you guys. What was your favorite trade? What's the move that really gets Indiana over the hump? Because I think with some of these, I think it could make most of these trades made the Pacers better short term. Some of them maybe even long term. But I think that sometimes you do need to push the chips in and make that bold move, maybe even cover your eyes when you do it and just say, we're hoping for the best. And I think some of these trades had a little bit of everything in them where you're swinging for the fences. Maybe sometimes you're just bunting for a single. Maybe you're going for a double. Anything of the sort, I think, was involved in this episode. And that's what's always fun, breaking out the trade machine.
It is fun. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot.
Facci was texting me, stressing out. He couldn't believe I came up with 10 trades. I said,
Couldn't believe it.
I just said, I went for it, man. Whatever. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If we talk it out and we hate him, well, we'll just say we hate him. You know, it's fine. I'm not losing sleep. This is our annual thing we do every year.
Yeah, we do. And I think we haven't broke out the trade machine as much this year compared to the past because this team's been good. You don't need to just stockpile a bunch of players in these deals and get rid of it. And that's what makes things tough because I looked at this roster and maybe I was speaking with my heart. I was like, I really love this Pacers team.
Same.
And I don't want to shake things up too much, but you also have guys like, okay, there's a couple of guys that feel untouchable. You got your Halliburton, we can't do that. And then all of a sudden it's like, I didn't want, just like you said, I didn't want to include him hard in any deals. Siakam, okay, we want to bring him back. There's so many players that you're like, but we need this guy, or he's sentimental to the team. Like I didn't have TJ McConnell in any deals. You know, a year ago that was way different. So it shows that we like what we have, but we're always looking to say it's not personal. How do we make this team better?
For sure, and that's what's always interesting about doing these deals. I kind of kept looking back at what Boston did. You know, Brad Stevens made some tough decisions, right?
They love Marcus Smart. Man,
they traded Marcus Smart, who was the heart and soul of the team. They traded Robert Williams and Malcolm Brogdon, who were, you know, a big part of the team and their roles. And they were able to go out there and get Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, and it literally elevated them from a team that was kind of just making it to the end of the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, but never getting over the hump, to dominating this entire playoff run. I think they ended up going 16-3, Facci, if I'm not mistaken.
Never lost more than one game in any round. And I think that's pretty impressive.
So they finished with an amazing record overall, like one of the best records of all time. So they're a historic team, and they made the right moves, and they had to cut ties with certain players because better players became available, better options became available for their team, and it was like, man, they're trading the heart and soul guy that's been here that long. It might be the same case for Indiana eventually. They might have to rip that Band-Aid off and make some tough deals, but I think that we have to just trust in the front office to do the right thing, and I'm sure the front office, if they're listening to this podcast, they are probably chuckling and saying, man, these guys are coming up with some crazy ideas. So I don't think they're going to be like, yeah, let's do any of these ideas. I think they're probably more laughing at the options that we're throwing out there, but it's always fun to kind of put the GM cap on and try your best to make deals.
Oh yeah, I could just imagine Chad going, "Hey KP, you got to listen to this one. It's called a super trade." So something like that. But at the same point, look, we're gonna throw some stuff, see what sticks. You never know. And hey, it's always nice to at least hear from the front office and say, they keep their eyes and ears open, and if something makes sense, you never know.
All right, Facci. Well, for all the super trade lovers out there, go ahead and let everybody know where they can find us out on social.
Absolutely. So you can find us on Twitter at PacersPod STP. You can find Alex on Twitter at AlexGoldNBA. I can be found on Twitter at _FACCI. You can find us on Instagram at PacersPod STP. You can find us on Facebook at Setting the Pace. You can find us on TikTok at Setting the Pace. And Alex, tell them where they can check us out on YouTube.
Yeah, go to youtube.com/settingthepace, a Pacers podcast. All of our video content will be available there for you. And if you've missed previous episodes where we've done interviews with different players, like an Andrew Nembhard we did on Tuesday, that was a fun interview. We've also interviewed guys like Miles Turner, Benedict Mathurin, Tyrese Halliburton, those guys in the past. So if those videos intrigue you, go out there and watch those on the YouTube channel. Lance Stevenson's on there, Chad Buchanan obviously been on the show. So really encourage you to do that. And if you haven't already given us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to this on the audio side of things, please go ahead and do that. But Facci, if you're hoping the Pacers at least consider making a super trade this offseason, then hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go Pacers.